into nation and grows organization into organizational strength, as Mary McLeod Bethune said, that we need the unity of organization. What is the picture that I was shown? In the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, there's a story about a baby that came to birth, but the baby was in an open field covered in the blood of the afterbirth. And there was no one present to cut the umbilical cord, and there was no one present to wash the baby that was polluted in its own blood. And there was no one present to diaper the baby. And so the writer in the scripture says, and I walked by, and I saw this baby in an open field, and I said, live. Because the baby could not live polluted in its blood. And it could not live without the umbilical cord cut. And it could not live except there was someone there to perform a duty by that child. Who is that child? Polluted in its blood. Did you know, my dear and beloved leaders, that there can never be independence as a gift? No European government can grant you independence. Independence is not given away. Independence is earned through self-development. Please listen. This is how you got here from your mother's womb. Independence couldn't be given to you by your mother. You earned it by developing beyond the ability of the tiny house called womb to hold you in its grip. And when the womb could no longer hold you, your head forged the way for your freedom. And that's what these heads are for. They are to forge the way to freedom of the people who line up behind your leadership, hungering and thirsting for liberty and the pursuit of happiness and the opportunity to express the gifts that God has given them. But what is the condition of the baby? Some of us have been free 5 years, some of us 10, some of us 15 years, some of us 20, some of us 30, but we lay in an open field, polluted in the blood of colonialism, polluted in the afterbirth of what European white supremacists have imposed on Africa and on Arab nations. Beloved leaders and guides for the people, when we say polluted in the blood, it means we still live the life of a slave. We don't think like free men. We go to the capitals of America and Europe like beggars, weak to demand or ask for what unjust regimes will never give. Unless we develop power to force unjust governments to yield to just demands, we will never achieve what we desire for our people. The umbilical cord is not cut. All French-speaking countries are tied to France. And the blood of all colonialism is covering all Francophone leaders. I must speak honestly and frankly. Please listen. Please listen. All Anglophone leaders are tied to England. All of us are tied to our former masters in one way or another. And therefore, we don't talk about freedom. We talk about emancipation. Well, what is the meaning of the word? Emancipation comes from two Latin words, or one Latin word, mancipere, which means to free from your hand but not from your control. You are freed from the hand of Europe, but you are still under the control of Europe. We are free from the hand of the government of white America and oppression and racism in that form, but we are still tied to them in many other ways. And until we can untie and truly cut the umbilical cord and come to a state of real independence, then we are fooling ourselves. We are self-deluded. We have pomp and circumstance of real power, but beneath it there is no real substance. So we pat each other on the back and say nice things to one another to make each other feel good, but each one of us in our own way knows how powerless we are when it comes to having real power and meaningful power to change the conditions under which our poor people suffer. And so the last thing I would say, we need to be washed from colonial education, an education that makes us lead our people in the way of our former masters rather than lead them in the way of true independence. We don't need French masters to tell us how to educate African children, nor do we need to be approved by England to teach our people what our people need to know. Each one of you has been educated in some of the finest universities and colleges of the world. But what good is it for us to be educated and our people to be ignorant? That imposes upon us a duty and a responsibility. Each one of us as leaders live in fine homes. We wear fine clothes. We drive in fine cars. But our people have nothing to eat because sometimes we lead not for the benefit of the people who we are supposed to lead for. Sometimes we lead our people to the benefit of our former colonial masters. So they won't trouble your leadership because your leadership is ineffective. Every strong leader that Africa produced has been killed by the same forces that hate black progress. Not only in Africa, but in America, we have seen our leaders who lead for our good cut down. We could call the roll on both sides of the Atlantic, but you and I are the leaders of today. You have the baton of leadership in your hand, and I have it in mine, and we, dear brothers and sisters, have it in ours. But the question is, will we lead, or will we play a game of let's get along? Get along for what purpose? You cannot sell out the future of your nation in order to live in luxury at the expense of the yearning of our people for self-development and economic development. Nor can our hands across the water be served by greedy, ambitious business people who are not really concerned with the development of a people but want to fatten their own pockets at the expense of people. We got to, no. I only have another minute, so let me say what I have to say. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. But I'm not a politician. I'm a man of God. And as a man of God, I cannot help myself. I have to say what God demands of me to say. Whether you like me or not is irrelevant and immaterial. I'm not seeking a vote. I'm seeking to be accepted by God as a representative of His will. So I close now, beloved leaders, begging you on behalf of our people to lead for the good of all of our people. Lead for the development of our people. Lead to erase ignorance from the heads of our people. And above all, let no one keep African leaders divided against each other. And let no one in America keep us divided one against each other. We don't communicate with each other. Therefore, an enemy gets between us and represents me to you and you to me. And therefore, I don't like you and you don't like me. And we never get together to strengthen our bond of unity. And it is the same in Africa. There are those who will tell you who you should be with and who you should not be with. I say to the government of the United States of America, you have a big role to play, but not a role to crush the growing good leadership in Africa. Your role is one of a nurturer. The baby is laying in the open field. Somebody has to wash the baby. Somebody has to cut the umbilical cord.